Welcome. I hope you had a good day. Time to relax as we begin our journey with the Arctic tern. There are birds that migrate, and then there is the Arctic tern, a creature that looked at the entire planet and decided that experiencing one summer per year was simply inadequate. This bird migrates from the Arctic to the Antarctic and back again every single year, roughly 44,000 miles. That is the equivalent of flying to the moon and getting about halfway back, annually, for a bird that weighs less than an iPhone. The Arctic tern sees more daylight than any other animal on Earth because it chases summer across both poles. It is either brilliantly strategic or completely unhinged, and honestly, both interpretations seem valid. Our story begins in June on a rocky island off the coast of Iceland. The landscape looks like someone started building a planet and then got distracted halfway through. Black volcanic rock stretches in every direction, broken occasionally by patches of moss that cling to existence, with what can only be described as misplaced optimism. The wind never stops. Not for coffee breaks, not for holidays, not for any reason that would suggest it has manners. It howls across the rocks at speeds that make walking in a straight line feel like a competitive sport. And on this charming piece of real estate, several thousand Arctic terns have decided to raise families. The alpha male, if we can call him that, arrived 3 weeks ago. He is not large. Arctic terns are built like paper airplanes with anger management issues. Sleek white bodies, black caps on their heads, blood-red beaks that look like they were designed by someone who takes personal offense seriously. This male weighs perhaps 4 ounces. A strong breeze could relocate him. But what he lacks in mass, he compensates for with a territorial aggression that would make a honey badger take notes. He claimed a small depression in the rocks, a nest site he has returned to for 3 consecutive years. Not because it is particularly comfortable. There is no comfort here, but it is his, and in the world of Arctic terns, possession is not 9/10 of the law. It is all of the law, enforced violently. The alpha female arrived 2 days after him. She is slightly smaller, her movements precise and efficient in a way that suggests she does not waste energy on unnecessary drama. Unlike her mate, who wastes energy on drama constantly because drama is his entire brand. She circled the territory twice, evaluating, checking the site for drainage, exposure, proximity to feeding areas. Arctic tern females do not choose mates based on personality. They choose based on real estate and the male's ability to defend it without getting himself removed from existence by a rival. She landed. He performed a courtship flight that involved carrying a small fish and flying in circles while making sounds that can only be described as enthusiastic shrieking. It is not romantic by human standards, but by tern standards it communicated everything necessary, which is I have food, I have territory, I am not currently losing fights. She accepted. They have been together now for 4 breeding seasons. In tern terms, this is practically a golden anniversary. Most tern pairs stay together only as long as both birds return to the same site each year. If one arrives late or chooses a different territory, the relationship ends with all the ceremony of someone ghosting a text message. The female laid 2 eggs in early June. Mottled brown, speckled, roughly the size of large olives. She placed them directly on the bare rock because Arctic terns do not believe in nest building. Why construct something when you can simply put your eggs on a stone and hope for the best? It is minimalist parenting taken to its logical extreme. Both parents take turns incubating. 3-hour shifts, rotating with the precision of factory workers who cannot afford to be late. The bird on duty sits motionless, pressing the eggs against a bare brood patch on their belly where feathers have fallen away to allow direct skin contact. The bird off duty flies to the ocean, usually about half a mile away, and hunts. Arctic terns are surface feeders. They hover above the water, scanning for small fish, then plunge in a shallow dive that barely gets them wet. Sand eels, capelin, small cod, anything silver and bite-sized. They do not dive deep like puffins or gannets. They skim, they snatch, they leave. Efficiency over elegance. The ocean here is cold enough to cause immediate regret. Around 4 degrees Celsius, cold enough that staying in too long would be a poor life choice. The terns know this instinctively. Get in, get food, get out, get warm. Repeat until you have eaten enough to sustain another 3-hour shift of sitting on rocks in the wind. It is not glamorous work, but the entire colony is doing it. Roughly 3,000 terns, all nesting within shouting distance of each other. And by shouting distance, I mean they are in fact shouting. Constantly. The noise is extraordinary, a continuous wall of sound composed of shrieks, cries, arguments, and what can only be described as avian profanity. If you walked into this colony, which would be a mistake, it would sound like a stadium full of angry seagulls who have all been personally wronged. Because Arctic terns nest colonially, territory is measured in feet, not acres. The alpha male's territory extends perhaps 6 feet in any direction from the nest. This is his kingdom, his empire, his 6 square feet of volcanic rock, and he will defend it like it contains the last sandwich on Earth. Other males test the boundaries constantly, not because they want the specific spot, but because in a colony this dense, every bird is always looking for an upgrade or an opportunity to steal resources. A male lands 4 feet away. The alpha male launches immediately. No warning calls, no posturing, just vertical takeoff and direct confrontation. The 2 birds meet in midair, beaks clashing, wings beating, both shrieking threats that probably translate to something like, "This is my rock and you are making a terrible decision." The intruder retreats. He was testing, not committing. The alpha male returns to his post, landing beside the female, who has not moved from the eggs. She did not even look up during the fight. This happens 17 times per hour, every hour, for 6 weeks. Parenting Arctic terns is not a vacation. It is a siege where the enemy is everyone. The female is equally aggressive when it is her shift off the nest. A neighboring female drifts too close while returning from a fishing trip. The alpha female intercepts her 3 feet from the boundary. They do not fight. Instead, they engage in what biologists call a forward threat display. Both birds lower their heads, point their beaks forward, raise their wings slightly, and scream at volumes that seem physically impossible for their size. It looks absurd. It sounds worse. But it works. The neighbor veers away, muttering what are presumably tern curses under her breath. Boundaries re-established, honor defended, no one injured. This is actually a successful interaction by colony standards. 2 weeks into incubation, a new threat arrives. Arctic skuas. Large, dark, predatory seabirds that look like seagulls who joined a motorcycle gang and developed a taste for violence. Skuas do not hunt fish. They hunt other birds. Specifically, they hunt tern chicks and eggs, which are conveniently concentrated in one loud, poorly defended location. 3 skuas appear over the colony at dawn. The reaction is immediate and coordinated. Every tern in the colony launches simultaneously. 3,000 birds rising into the air like a white explosion. The noise doubles, which seems impossible, but they manage it. The skuas are large, powerful flyers, but they are outnumbered 1,000 to 1. The terns mob them, diving, striking, retreating, diving again. They do not attack to kill because they cannot. A skua weighs 4 times what a tern weighs, but they can harass, and harassment in sufficient numbers becomes overwhelming. The alpha male makes 6 attack runs in 2 minutes. Each time he dives from above, aims for the skua's head, pulls up at the last second. It is psychological warfare, a reminder that this meal will cost energy, time, and possibly dignity. The skuas circle twice more, then leave. They will return tomorrow because skuas are persistent. But today, the colony has won. The terns settle back onto their nests, exhausted, triumphant. The alpha male lands beside his mate. She has not left the eggs once during the attack. Leaving would mean exposing them. Exposing them would mean losing them. So she sat, motionless, while 3,000 birds screamed overhead and skuas circled. Like airborne threats, this is parenting in a colony. Trust the group to defend while you protect what matters most. By late June, the eggs hatch. First one, then 2 days later, the second. The chicks are tiny, barely 2 inches long, covered in mottled gray down that makes them look like small, angry cotton balls. Their eyes open immediately. Unlike many birds, tern chicks are precocial. They can see, move, and regulate their own body temperature from day one. This is necessary because their parents cannot stay with them constantly. Both adults must hunt now, bringing back fish for chicks whose appetites seem designed to bankrupt their parents. The chicks eat constantly. Small fish delivered whole, swallowed in a process that looks uncomfortable for everyone involved. A chick weighs half an ounce at hatching. 3 weeks later, it will weigh 4 ounces. That is 8 times its birth weight. The equivalent of a human baby weighing 64 pounds at 3 weeks old. It requires an absurd amount of food. The alpha male and female are now making feeding runs every 30 minutes. Dawn to dusk, no breaks, no rest. They fly to the ocean, hover, dive, catch, return. Land, transfer fish to chick, launch, repeat. 14 hours per day. If they were keeping track, which they are not, they would realize they are each flying roughly 80 miles daily just to keep their offspring from complaining. The chicks do complicate matters by wandering. At 1 week old, they begin exploring, not far, maybe 3 feet from the nest scrape, but in a colony where territories are 6 feet wide, 3 feet is significant. A chick crosses into a neighbor's territory. The neighbor does not attack the chick. Terns do not harm chicks, even those belonging to rivals. But the neighbor does scream at the chick's parents, who must now retrieve their offspring while simultaneously defending their own boundary. It is chaos. Loud, exhausting, completely predictable chaos. The alpha female retrieves the wandering chick by standing in front of it and calling until it follows her back. Tern parents do not carry their young. They herd them, like tiny feathered sheep who do not understand property lines. By mid-July, the chicks are 3 weeks old, fully feathered now, though their plumage is mottled brown rather than the clean white of adults. They look like teenagers wearing clothes that do not quite fit. Awkward, gangly, convinced they know everything, while clearly knowing nothing. They can fly. Short distances, unstable flights that involve more crashing than landing, but flight nonetheless. This is critical because in 2 weeks, they will need to migrate 4,000 miles. There is no practice period, no training montage. They will simply leave with the adults and either keep up or fall behind. Nature does not grade on a curve. The alpha pair begins taking the chicks on short flights over the ocean, following the adults, watching how they hunt, attempting their own dives with results that range from unsuccessful to embarrassing. One chick hovers over the water, spots a fish, commits to the dive, and belly flops so hard that it creates a splash visible from shore. It surfaces fishless, dignity damaged, and flies back to the rocks while its sibling makes sounds that might be laughter. Tern families do not coddle. You learn by doing, and doing often involves failure, witnessed by relatives who will remember it forever. By early August, the chicks are competent flyers. Not skilled, but competent enough to migrate. The colony's energy shifts. Adults become restless. Feeding continues, but there is a new urgency. Territories that were defended with violence for 8 weeks are now abandoned without ceremony. The purpose has been fulfilled. Eggs became chicks. Chicks became flyers. The rocks that mattered so intensely now matter not at all. On August 10th, the adults begin gathering in larger groups. Hundreds of terns circling over the colony, calling, coordinating without any obvious leader. This is not discussed or planned. It simply happens, triggered by shortening daylight and internal calendars set by millions of years of evolution. The alpha male takes off with his mate and their 2 juveniles. They join the circling mass. The noise is incredible. 3,000 birds calling simultaneously, a sound that carries for miles. And then, without signal or ceremony, they turn south. All of them. The entire colony, lifting away from the rocks like a white cloud, pulled by invisible strings. The chicks follow their parents. They do not know where they are going. They know only to follow, to keep the adults in sight, to trust that the birds ahead understand the route. This is faith expressed through flight. The colony strings out over the ocean, not a tight formation, but a loose river of birds flowing south. Some fly higher, some lower, all maintaining visual contact with the group. They are heading to the Antarctic, 11,000 miles away. Across the Atlantic, down the coasts of Europe and Africa, over the Southern Ocean to the pack ice. It will take roughly 3 months. There are no stops for rest, no hotels, no layovers. They will feed while flying, sleep while gliding on updrafts, and navigate using the sun, stars, and magnetic fields they can sense, but not explain. The alpha male has made this journey 8 times. His mate, 7. For the juveniles, this is their first migration. Everything is new. The open ocean stretches endlessly. No landmarks, no reference points, just water, wind, and the birds ahead who seem to know where they are going. The juveniles fly close to their parents for the first 2 days. Then gradually, they drift into the larger group, joining other young birds, forming loose associations based on nothing more than proximity and the shared experience of being new at this. The alpha male does not track his offspring once they join the group. Tern parenting ends when migration begins. The chicks are on their own now, guided by instinct and the collective knowledge of the flock. If they survive, The family may reunite next spring at the breeding colony. If they do not, the parents will raise new chicks without dwelling on the loss. This is not cruelty. This is simply how terns function. Investment ends when independence begins. 3 days into the migration, the flock encounters a storm. Low pressure system, wind gusting to 40 knots, rain falling in sheets that turn the ocean surface white. The terns do not avoid it. They cannot. The storm covers hundreds of miles. Going around would cost time and energy they cannot spare, so they fly through it, riding the wind where it helps, fighting it where it does not. The rain soaks their feathers, adding weight, making every wing beat harder. But Arctic terns are built for this. Their feathers shed water efficiently. Their wings are long and narrow for efficient gliding. They drop altitude, flying just above the waves where the wind is slightly less violent. It is exhausting. Several birds, mostly juveniles, fall behind. The group does not slow, cannot slow. Migration operates on margins too thin for charity. By evening, the storm passes. The flock emerges battered but intact, smaller than it was. Some birds are gone, fallen into the ocean from exhaustion or injury. The juveniles who remain are stronger for it. Survival of the adequate, tested by conditions that eliminate the underprepared. The alpha male shakes water from his feathers and continues south. There will be more storms. There always are. But today, he has endured. His mate flies beside him, separated by 10 feet. Both birds locked into the rhythm of migration. Wing beats synchronized not through effort, but through thousands of miles of practice. They are not thinking about Antarctica. Terns do not plan that far ahead. They think about the next thermal, the next fish, the next hour of flight. The destination will arrive when it arrives. Until then, there is only the journey, and the journey has 22,000 miles remaining. By day 5, the flock has traveled 700 miles. They are now off the coast of Scotland, following the continental shelf where upwelling currents bring fish close to the surface. The feeding is better here than it was around Iceland. More variety, more abundance. The terns drop to the water repeatedly throughout the day, hovering, scanning, diving, catching. Small fish consumed on the wing, barely pausing the forward momentum. This is how they sustain migration, not by stopping to rest and feed, but by feeding while resting on the wing. They glide when conditions allow, using updrafts from waves, riding wind currents that require no effort to maintain altitude. A tern can glide for minutes without a single wing beat, covering distance while recovering energy. It is extraordinarily efficient and absolutely necessary because this migration is not a sprint. It is an endurance test that lasts 3 months. The alpha male spots a school of sand eels near the surface. He banks left, drops altitude, hovers for 2 seconds. The hover is remarkable. Wings beating so fast they blur, body perfectly still in space, despite wind trying to relocate him. He adjusts position with tiny movements, locks onto a target, folds his wings, and drops. The dive is shallow, barely a plunge, more of a controlled fall. He hits the water, breaks the surface with his beak, grabs the eel, and is airborne again in less than a second. Total time submerged, perhaps a third of a second. Any longer and the cold water would begin sapping body heat. He swallows the eel mid-flight, a motion that involves tilting his head back and letting gravity assist. It is not graceful, but it works. 1 fish every 20 minutes, 14 fish per day, each one roughly the length of his beak, weighing perhaps 1/10 of an ounce. The math is tight. A tern burns energy flying, and must replace that energy with fish that provide just enough calories to continue. There is no surplus, no savings account of fat reserves. They operate on a daily budget that balances to zero. This is why juveniles struggle. Inexperienced hunters cannot maintain the balance. They burn more energy than they consume, and the deficit accumulates until they can no longer keep pace. One of the alpha pair's juveniles is falling behind. Not dramatically, but enough to be noticeable. She is hunting less efficiently than her sibling, missing more dives, hovering longer while searching for fish, burning energy without equivalent return. By evening, she is 50 yards behind the main group. By the next morning, 100 yards. The adults do not wait. They cannot. Migration timing is critical. Arrive too late in the Antarctic, and the best feeding areas are already claimed. Arrive too early, and the pack ice has not retreated enough to allow access. The window is measured in weeks. The juvenile keeps flying, but the gap widens. On day 7, she is no longer visible to the group. She may catch up. She may find another flock heading south and join them. She may not survive. First-year mortality for Arctic terns is roughly 60%. Most deaths occur during migration. Inexperience, bad weather, insufficient hunting skills, simple exhaustion. The adults who arrive in Antarctica are the successful ones, the skilled, the lucky, the adequately prepared. Natural selection expressed through an 11,000-mile filter. The remaining juvenile, the male, is doing better. He flies near the center of the flock, surrounded by other young birds who provide visual reference and psychological comfort. He is learning rapidly. Each successful dive reinforces technique. Each missed dive teaches adjustment. By day 10, his success rate has improved from 40% to 60%, still lower than the adults, who succeed roughly 80% of the time, but improving. An improvement is survival. The flock continues south along the European coast, past Ireland, past France, past Spain. The weather warms slightly, which is pleasant but irrelevant. Terns do not migrate for comfort. They migrate following food and light. The breeding season in the Arctic is timed to coincide with peak fish availability and 24-hour daylight. The Antarctic summer offers the same. By chasing summer between poles, Arctic terns experience more daylight hours than any creature on Earth. It is not a comfortable strategy. It is not an easy strategy, but it is supremely effective for a bird whose survival depends on visual hunting. More light equals more hunting time equals more food equals higher survival. The math is simple, even if the execution is exhausting. By late August, the flock reaches the coast of West Africa. The ocean here is warmer, the air more humid. Flying becomes slightly harder because warm air is less dense, providing less lift. The terns adjust by flying higher during the heat of day, descending to cooler air near the water during morning and evening. They are crossing the equator now. Behind them, the northern hemisphere is sliding into autumn, days shortening, temperatures falling. Ahead, the southern hemisphere is emerging from winter into spring. The terns are synchronized with neither. They exist in perpetual summer, always chasing the next season, never settling into one place long enough to experience the transition. It is a strange existence, constantly moving, constantly adapting, never truly belonging to one hemisphere or the other, but it works. And in nature, working is all that matters. The alpha male has lost weight during the migration, not dangerously, but noticeably. His body is leaner, his flight more efficient. Every unnecessary gram has been metabolized away. He is now an optimized flying machine. Muscle, bone, feathers, and just enough fat to survive one day without food. Nothing extra, nothing wasted. His mate is in similar condition. Both birds are performing at peak efficiency, and they will need to because the hardest part of the migration is still ahead. The Southern Ocean. 40 million square miles of water between Africa and Antarctica. No land, no shelter, no easy fishing, just waves, wind, and the longest open water crossing of the entire journey. The terns will spend 3 weeks over this ocean, sleeping on the wing, feeding opportunistically, trusting currents and instinct to guide them south. It is the test that separates the survivors from the lost. The moment where experience and preparation determine who reaches Antarctica and who becomes another statistic in the 60% that do not return. The Southern Ocean does not care about your travel plans. It is the most hostile stretch of water on Earth, circling Antarctica like a moat designed by something that genuinely dislikes visitors. Waves here can reach 60 feet. Winds routinely exceed 50 knots. The water temperature hovers around freezing, which means falling in is not an inconvenience. It is a timer counting down to the end, and the Arctic terns fly across it like it is a casual afternoon trip. The flock is smaller now than when it left Iceland. Perhaps 2,000 birds remain from the original 3,000. Some died during storms. Others fell behind and were absorbed into different flocks, heading south at different speeds. A few turned back, their internal navigation declaring the journey impossible and returning north to try again next year. Those birds will not breed. Returning to the Arctic without completing migration marks them as unreliable. Potential mates will choose others. Natural selection favoring commitment. The alpha male and his mate fly in the middle section of the flock, not at the front, where leadership requires constant navigation adjustments, not at the back, where stragglers struggle. In the middle, where experienced adults maintain steady pace and conserve energy. Their remaining juvenile flies 30 yards ahead, integrated now into a group of other young birds. He has survived the first month. His hunting skills have improved to near adult competency. He is leaner, stronger, more efficient than when he left Iceland. The crossing will test whether that is enough. The wind over the Southern Ocean blows from west to east, constantly. The roaring 40s, furious 50s, screaming 60s. Named sailors gave to latitude bands where wind never stops and waves never settle. The terns use this wind, flying with it when heading east, angling across it when heading south, never fighting it directly because fighting burns energy they cannot replace. They have entered the furious 50s now, 50 degrees south latitude. The air temperature has dropped to just above freezing. Rain has become sleet, then snow, then back to rain in cycles that change hourly. Visibility drops during squalls, forcing the flock to tighten formation to maintain visual contact. During these moments, 300 birds might compress into a space the size of a football field. Wings overlapping, individuals separated by inches, everyone trusting that everyone else is paying attention. One mistake, one collision, and multiple birds fall. It does not happen often, but when it does, there is no rescue. Birds that hit the water cannot take off again from the surface. The waves are too large, the troughs too deep. They are pulled under, within seconds. The flock continues without pause. Stopping would save no one and doom everyone. Migration does not allow for grief. On the third day, over the Southern Ocean, the flock encounters albatross. Wandering albatross, enormous seabirds with wingspans exceeding 10 feet. They glide effortlessly through conditions that force terns to fight for every mile. The albatross are not hostile. They barely notice the terns. To them, Arctic terns are small, loud, irrelevant creatures struggling through an environment the albatross were designed to dominate. Which is accurate. The alpha male watches an albatross pass overhead. The bird has not flapped its wings in 20 minutes. It simply rides the wind, adjusting angle with tiny movements, covering distance without effort. Terns cannot do this. Their wings are built for maneuverability, not endurance gliding. They must flap constantly, burning energy, working for every mile the albatross achieves through patience and wingspan. It is deeply unfair, but nature does not distribute advantages equally. The albatross is better at crossing oceans. The tern is better at everything else: hunting in shallow water, territorial defense, raising chicks in terrible locations. Each species optimized for different strategies. The tern does not envy the albatross. It simply continues flying because continuing is what terns do. Feeding becomes harder over the open ocean. Fish are deeper here, less concentrated. The terns must travel farther between hunting opportunities. Some days, an individual might catch only 8 fish, barely enough to maintain energy balance. This is where body condition from the breeding season matters. Birds that arrived at migration slightly overweight have reserves to draw on. Birds that arrived lean have nothing extra. The alpha male is losing weight steadily now, not rapidly, but consistently, a gram per day. Over 3 weeks, that becomes 20 grams, half his body weight. He is burning muscle to fuel flight because there is insufficient food to maintain mass. His mate is experiencing the same decline. Both birds are becoming skeletal, their bodies prioritizing survival over strength. They will rebuild in Antarctica. If they reach Antarctica, the juvenile is struggling more. He lacks the experience to find fish efficiently in open ocean conditions. His dive success rate has dropped to 40%. He is burning more than he consumes. The deficit accumulates. By day 17, over the Southern Ocean, he is noticeably behind the main flock. Flying lower, flapping harder, showing the kind of effort that indicates reserves are nearly exhausted. Other juveniles around him are in similar condition, some worse. A few have already fallen, their bodies claimed by waves that leave no trace. The juvenile continues because stopping is not an option. There is no land to rest on, no shelter to recover in, only forward motion or the ocean. He flies through the night, guided by stars and the dim shapes of other birds ahead. Sleep comes in brief moments, seconds where he glides with eyes closed, trusting muscle memory to maintain altitude, then jerks awake, corrects position, continues. It is not restful, but it is enough to sustain basic function. By day 20 over the Southern Ocean, the water begins to change. The temperature drops further. Small chunks of ice appear on the surface, brash ice, fragments broken from larger formations drifting north on currents. The terns navigate around them instinctively. Ice means land is near, or at least the edge of Antarctica's influence is near. The wind shifts slightly, coming now from the south, colder, drier, carrying the smell of a continent made of frozen water. The flock tightens formation, energy rising despite exhaustion. They are close. On day 22, the ice shelf appears, a wall of white rising from the ocean, stretching east and west beyond the limits of vision. Sheer cliffs of ice, some reaching 200 feet high. The edge of Antarctica, where the continental ice sheet meets the sea and calves icebergs the size of cities. It is spectacular. It is terrifying. It is home for the next 4 months. The flock does not land on the ice shelf. It is too high, too exposed, too devoid of food. Instead, they continue south, following the coastline, searching for leads. Leads are cracks in the sea ice where open water persists. These areas concentrate fish, krill, and other prey driven together by the narrowing available space. Where there are leads, there is food. And where there is food, terns can survive. The alpha male spots a lead 3 miles ahead, a dark line cutting through white ice, perhaps half a mile long. Other birds have already found it. Hundreds of terns circling above, diving, feeding. Not just Arctic terns, Antarctic terns as well, smaller cousins, who breed here and never migrate north. The two species coexist without hostility. Both are too exhausted to waste energy on territorial disputes over an ocean. The alpha male descends toward the water, his first dive in Antarctic waters. He hovers, scans, spots movement below the surface. Antarctic krill, small crustaceans that swarm in numbers, that turn the water pink. Not his preferred food, but acceptable. He dives, grabs 3 krill in one mouthful, swallows while climbing. They are rich in fat and protein, exactly what he needs after 22 days of insufficient rations. He dives again immediately, and again, feeding with an intensity driven by 3 weeks of deficit. His mate is doing the same, working the lid methodically, catching krill with the efficiency of an adult who has made this journey before. The juvenile arrives an hour later. He is barely flying. Wings beating irregularly, altitude dropping, body language screaming exhaustion. He spots the lead, aims for it, nearly crashes on landing. His feet hit the water. He floats for a moment, too tired to take off. This is dangerous. Leopard seals hunt in these waters. Large predators that patrol, leads looking for exactly this situation. Exhausted birds on the surface. Easy meals. The juvenile rests for 10 seconds, then forces himself airborne. It takes 6 wing beats to clear the water. Under normal conditions, he would need 2, but he is aloft, and that is what matters. He hovers clumsily above the water, spots krill, dives, catches them, swallows. The relief is immediate and chemical. Food entering his system, energy returning, the deficit beginning to close. He feeds for an hour without pause. Slowly, his flight steadies. His wing beats strengthen. He is recovering. He has survived the Southern Ocean crossing. Most juveniles do not, but he has. And that makes him, statistically speaking, exceptional. The flock remains at the lead for 2 days, feeding constantly, rebuilding body mass, recovering from the crossing. Birds that departed Iceland weighing 4 ounces now weigh 3. After 2 days at the lead, they are back to 3.5. Not fully recovered, but functional. The Antarctic summer is beginning. The sun now circles the horizon without setting. 24-hour daylight, just like the Arctic. The light is different here, harsher, more reflective, bouncing off endless white surfaces until the entire world glows. Terns do not mind. More light means more hunting time. And after 3 months of migration, they are ready to do nothing but hunt, rest, and rebuild. This is not their breeding season. Arctic terns do not breed in Antarctica. They are here purely for the feeding. The Antarctic summer offers an explosion of marine life. Krill, fish, squid, all concentrated in areas of open water. It is a buffet compared to the lean weeks of migration. The terns spread out along the coast, each bird claiming loose feeding territories, not defended aggressively like breeding sites, more like preferred fishing spots, acknowledged by others but not fought over. The alpha male settles into a routine, wake, which is meaningless in 24-hour daylight, but refers to the period after extended rest. Fly to the nearest lead or polynina, which is a larger area of persistent open water. Hunt for 3 hours, rest on an ice floe for an hour, hunt for 3 more hours, rest again. Repeat until tired enough to sleep for extended periods. It is simple, sustainable, and exactly what his body needs after the migration. His mate follows a similar pattern, often fishing near him but not with him. They are not bonded outside breeding season. Their partnership is seasonal, renewed each spring when they return to Iceland. Here in Antarctica, they are simply 2 birds who happen to have arrived via the same route. The juvenile fishes independently now. His skills have improved dramatically during the recovery period. He is catching fish at adult efficiency, rebuilding muscle, growing stronger. He will remain in Antarctica for 4 months, then return north. If he survives the return journey, he will spend the next 2 years around Iceland without breeding. Juveniles do not mature sexually until their 3rd year. He will practice, observe, learn the colony dynamics. Then, if he is skilled and lucky, claim a territory and find a mate. Most juveniles never reach that point. They are lost during migration, predation, accidents, but some do. And those become the next generation of adults making this impossible journey annually. The alpha male has been making this journey for 8 years. He has traveled roughly 350,000 miles in his lifetime. That is equivalent to flying to the moon and back, twice, for a bird that weighs less than a smartphone. It is a ridiculous accomplishment, and he will continue doing it until he cannot, until age or injury or exhaustion finally exceeds his ability to recover. Most Arctic terns live 15 to 20 years. The record is 34 years. That individual flew roughly 1.5 million miles in their lifetime, more than any other animal on Earth, not because it is easy or comfortable or pleasant, but because their survival strategy requires it. Chasing summer, chasing daylight, chasing food across both poles annually. It is exhausting to consider, but for the terns it is simply life, the only life they know, and so they continue. By late December, the Antarctic summer is at its peak. The ice has retreated further, exposing more open water. Fishing is excellent. The alpha male is now heavier than he was in Iceland. 4.2 ounces, the heaviest he has been in a year. His feathers are pristine, replaced during the molting period that occurred during migration. He is in peak physical condition, ready for the return journey north, not immediately. That will not begin until March, but the preparation has started. His body is banking energy, building reserves for the next 11,000-mile flight. The cycle continues. Summer in the Arctic, migration south, summer in Antarctica, migration north, every year without break for as long as his body allows. There are no vacations, no retirement plans, no consideration of an easier strategy. This is the Arctic tern's life. chosen by evolution over millions of years, refined until it works with brutal efficiency. And for the birds who survive, it works spectacularly. They see more of the planet than any creature alive, experience more daylight than should be physically possible for a single organism, live in perpetual summer by refusing to accept that one summer per year is sufficient. The alpha male floats on a small ice floe, digesting his most recent meal. Around him, hundreds of other terns are doing the same, resting, recovering, preparing. The sun circles overhead without setting. The water is calm, the air cold but not brutal. It is as close to peace as an Arctic tern experiences. Temporary, fragile, but real. He closes his eyes and sleeps, not deeply. Terns never sleep deeply, but enough to rest, to recover, to maintain the body that must carry him back across the world in 3 months. The Antarctic wind blows steadily from the interior, dry cold carrying the scent of ice that is millions of years old. It is a harsh land, beautiful in its severity, deadly in its indifference. But for 4 months each year, it is home to thousands of Arctic terns, refugees from the northern winter, guests in the southern summer. They do not belong here permanently. They are visitors, migrants, creatures whose survival depends on never staying anywhere long enough to become comfortable. It is a strange way to live, but it is their way. And in the clarity of Antarctic daylight, surrounded by ice and ocean and the endless sky, it seems almost reasonable, almost sustainable, almost like a strategy that makes sense. The alpha male sleeps on, unaware of philosophy, concerned only with the next meal, the next rest period, the next moment of existence, in a life measured in miles and migrations. Tomorrow he will wake and hunt again, and the day after that, and the day after that, for 4 months, until the light begins to change and his internal calendar declares it time to return north, back across the Southern Ocean, back up the African coast, back to Iceland, where the cycle will begin again. Eggs, chicks, defense, migration, survival, repeated annually until 1 year he does not return, until the journey finally exceeds his ability to complete it. But that day is not today. Today, he is alive, fed, resting in Antarctic summer, and for an Arctic tern, that is enough. That is everything. The Antarctic days blend together in a way that defies normal time. With no darkness to mark their passage, hours become arbitrary. The terns operate on internal rhythms, disconnected from solar cycles. Sleep when tired, hunt when hungry, rest when full. It is a simple existence after the complexity of breeding season and the exhaustion of migration. The alpha male has settled into a feeding territory centered around a polynya 5 miles from where he first arrived. This area of open water is roughly 2 miles across, maintained by currents that prevent ice formation even in the coldest conditions. It is prime habitat. The water here reaches depths of 300 feet, creating upwelling zones where nutrients rise from the depths and concentrate prey near the surface. Krill swarm here in densities that turn the water opaque. Fish follow the krill and terns follow the fish. It is an ecosystem compressed into a relatively small area, and the feeding is spectacular. The alpha male has learned the patterns of this polynya over previous visits. He knows that the western edge produces the most fish during what would be morning hours if morning meant anything here. The eastern edge is better during what would be afternoon. The center is consistent throughout but more crowded with competing birds. he adjusts his fishing accordingly, moving around the polynya based on time and competition. It is strategic hunting developed over years of experience. His mate uses a different polynya 3 miles east. Their separation is not hostile, merely practical. Two birds working the same area would compete for the same fish. By spreading out, they maximize individual success. They will reunite in Iceland next spring. Until then, they are independent operators with shared history but separate agendas. The juvenile has found his own fishing area, a smaller lead about a mile from the alpha male. The fishing is not as good, but the competition is lighter. Fewer birds means more opportunities for a less experienced hunter. He is learning constantly, watching adult birds, noting their techniques, adjusting his own approach. Each day he becomes slightly more efficient, slightly better at reading water conditions, identifying prey movements, timing dives. The improvement is incremental but cumulative. By February, he will hunt as well as any adult. For now, he is competent enough to maintain weight and build reserves. That is sufficient. The Antarctic environment presents challenges beyond just finding food. Leopard seals patrol the waters around every lead and polynya. These predators are enormous, reaching lengths of 12 feet and weights exceeding 1,000 pounds. They are fast, intelligent, and extremely interested in birds. A tern on the water is vulnerable. Takeoff requires several seconds and clear space. A seal can cover 50 yards underwater in the time it takes a tern to become airborne. The alpha male has encountered leopard seals twice in his 8 years of Antarctic visits. Both times, he spotted the seal's shadow moving beneath the surface before committing to land. Both times, he aborted his landing and circled higher. Watching other birds is also instructive. If every tern suddenly takes off from the water simultaneously, there is a seal nearby, guaranteed. The mass takeoff is instinctive, triggered by the first bird to spot the threat. Everyone else follows immediately without needing to see the danger themselves. Trust the flock, react instantly, survive collectively. One afternoon, a young Antarctic tern makes a mistake. It lands in the polynya to rest, floating with wings folded. A leopard seal surfaces directly beneath it. The seal does not breach dramatically. It simply rises, mouth open, and the bird disappears. No struggle, no drama, just sudden absence. The other birds scatter, climbing rapidly. The alpha male is 200 feet away when it happens. He watches, notes the location, files it under places to avoid. Leopard seals are not evil. They are simply apex predators doing what apex predators do. Finding and consuming prey efficiently. The terns do not hold grudges. They adjust behavior and continue fishing. 10 minutes later, birds are landing in the polynya again. In different areas, with increased vigilance but landing nonetheless, because the need to rest eventually outweighs the risk of predation. This is the calculation that every prey animal makes constantly. Risk versus reward, safety versus necessity. The terns are exceptionally good at this math. They have to be. Mistakes are terminal. By mid-January, the flock has spread across 50 miles of Antarctic coastline. The original tight formation from migration has dissolved completely. Birds are now scattered based on preferred fishing areas and individual territories. Some terns have moved north of the Antarctic Circle, following open water and fish concentrations. Others have pushed south toward the continent's interior, fishing in leads that penetrate deep into the ice sheet. The alpha male remains in his chosen area, satisfied with the feeding and unwilling to burn energy, searching for potentially better locations. This is known territory, proven productive, reliable. Why risk change when the current strategy works? His daily routine has become automatic. Wake from rest period around what would be 6 in the morning if time had meaning. Fly to the Polinia, arriving as the first good fishing period begins. Hunt for 2 to 3 hours, catching 20 to 30 fish. Rest on an ice floe for 1 hour, digesting and preening. Hunt again for 2 hours. Return to a different ice floe for extended rest, often sleeping for several hours. Wake, hunt for 1 more hour during the evening peak feeding time. Find a sheltered ice formation for the night rest period, sleeping for 6 to 8 hours. Repeat daily. It is monotonous. It is also exactly what he needs. His body is recovering from migration and preparing for the return journey. Every fish consumed adds to reserves. Every rest period allows cellular repair. By the time March arrives and the return migration begins, he will be in optimal condition. Heavier, stronger, ready for another 11,000-mile flight. The continuous daylight does create some challenges. Without darkness to enforce rest, birds must self-regulate their activity. Some juveniles, full of energy and poor judgment, hunt almost continuously. They catch more fish in the short term, but exhaust themselves over weeks. By February, these birds are noticeably haggard, still functional but operating at reduced efficiency. The experienced adults pace themselves. They understand that Antarctica is not a race. It is a recovery period, a time to rebuild slowly and sustainably. The alpha male demonstrates this understanding daily. He never overhunts, never pushes beyond comfortable exertion, never sacrifices rest for marginal gains. This discipline, developed over 8 years, is why he has survived 8 migrations, why he returns to Iceland every spring in condition to breed successfully. Discipline applied consistently over time produces results that enthusiasm cannot match. Late January brings a weather change. A low-pressure system moves across the Antarctic Peninsula, bringing winds that gust to 60 knots. The Polinia transforms from calm to violent within hours. Waves break across the ice edges. Spray freezes instantly, creating treacherous conditions. Fishing becomes nearly impossible. The terns cannot hover in wind this strong. They are blown sideways, their lightweight bodies, overwhelmed by air moving faster than they can compensate for. The alpha male retreats inland, finding shelter behind a pressure ridge where ice blocks have piled 30 feet high. Dozens of other terns have had the same idea. They cluster in the lee of the ridge, out of the direct wind, waiting for conditions to improve. No one is hunting. Everyone is simply enduring. This is acceptable because they have reserves. Missing a day of hunting will not threaten survival. Missing 3 days might, but 1 day is manageable. The storm passes by the following afternoon. The wind drops to 20 knots, still strong but workable. The Polinia is rougher than before, but fish are concentrated near the surface, pushed there by the storm's mixing of water layers. The fishing is actually better than it was before the storm. The alpha male catches 35 fish in 3 hours. His crop, a specialized storage organ in his throat, is full to capacity. He cannot eat another bite. He finds an ice floe and sleeps for 4 hours, digesting slowly. When he wakes, he is hungry again. The cycle continues. By early February, the light begins to change subtly. The sun is still circling without setting, but its angle has dropped slightly. The difference is barely perceptible, maybe 1 degree over several weeks, but the terns notice. Their internal calendars, synchronized with seasonal light patterns over millions of years of evolution, register the shift. Migration preparation begins unconsciously. Feeding intensity increases slightly. Rest periods shorten. Body condition improves from good to excellent. The alpha male is now at his heaviest weight of the year, 4.4 ounces, 10% heavier than his arrival weight. That extra mass is insurance. Fuel for the return journey, buffer against storms, or poor fishing during migration. His mate, fishing in her separate territory, is in similar condition. Both birds are peaking at exactly the right time. The juvenile has also gained weight, though not as much as the adults. He is up to 3.8 ounces from his arrival weight of 3. It is enough, not optimal, but sufficient for a first-time return migration. He will learn to bulk up more efficiently in future years. For now, he has met the minimum standard for survival. The Antarctic summer is ending, though calling it an ending seems wrong when the sun never sets. But the ice is beginning to advance again. Leads that were wide in January are narrowing in February. Polynya that were open and accessible are developing ice shelves around their edges. The terns are not being forced out, not yet, but the environment is sending signals. Subtle changes in ice distribution, water temperature, prey availability. Changes that say, summer is concluding, winter is approaching, time to leave before the leaving becomes impossible. The alpha male will remain in Antarctica for another 6 weeks. His departure is timed for mid-March, when the ice advance accelerates and fishing areas begin closing rapidly. Leave too early and you forfeit valuable feeding time. Leave too late and you may be trapped by ice or forced to detour around formations that add hundreds of miles to an already exhausting journey. The timing must be precise. And for 8 years, the alpha male's internal calendar has been exactly correct. He will leave when the moment arrives, not before, not after. Guided by instinct refined over countless generations. For now, he fishes and rests and builds reserves, preparing for the journey ahead while living fully in the present moment. It is a balance that terns master naturally, planning for the future while accepting the current reality. The Antarctic wind blows steady and cold, the water remains productive, the ice advances slowly, and the alpha male continues his routine day after day, storing energy and strength for the 11,000-mile flight that will begin soon enough. But not today. Today there is fishing to do, and that is all that matters. March 15th arrives without announcement. There is no calendar on the ice, no clock counting down. Just a subtle shift in light angle and internal chemistry that declares the moment has come. The alpha male wakes from his rest period and knows. Today is departure day. He does not question this knowledge or wonder if it is accurate. 8 previous migrations have calibrated his internal timing to near perfection. He flies to the Polynya for one final feeding session. The fishing is still good, but the ice around the edges has advanced noticeably. What was open water 2 weeks ago is now solid. The Polynya is shrinking daily. Within a month, it will be completely frozen. Any bird still here will be trapped or forced to fly increasingly long distances to find open water. The alpha male catches 12 fish in rapid succession, eating past comfortable fullness, packing in extra calories for the journey ahead. His crop bulges visibly. He looks slightly ridiculous, like he has swallowed something twice his size, which, in terms of volume, he basically has. Other birds are doing the same. The feeding frenzy this morning is noticeably more intense than yesterday. Everyone knows. The collective decision has been made without discussion or coordination. Today, they leave. By midday, birds begin gathering above the Polinia, circling, calling, forming loose groups. Not the entire Antarctic population, just the birds who arrive from Iceland. Arctic terns from different breeding colonies depart on different schedules. Norwegian birds left 2 weeks ago. Greenland birds will leave next week. Each population timed to arrive back at their specific breeding grounds at optimal moments. The alpha male joins the circling mass. His mate arrives 10 minutes later, recognizable by her flight pattern, even though she looks identical to every other adult female. They do not acknowledge each other. Their reunion will happen in Iceland, not here. The juvenile is also present, circling with other young birds. He has survived his first Antarctic summer and gained the experience necessary for the return journey. His odds of completing it successfully are roughly 70%, better than the 50% odds he faced coming south. Experience matters. By early afternoon, perhaps 1,500 birds are circling. The noise is substantial, but not overwhelming. Nothing like the breeding colony's chaos. These are simply birds preparing for departure, communicating readiness through presence rather than aggression. Then, without visible signal, the front edge of the flock turns north. Everyone follows. The great return migration has begun. They climb to altitude, seeking favorable winds. At 2,000 feet, they find a current moving northeast at 20 knots. Perfect. The flock strings out into a loose formation spanning several miles. Not tight like geese in a V, just a general northward flow of birds maintaining visual contact. The alpha male settles into cruising speed. Steady wing beats, efficient gliding between efforts, body angled to maximize lift from the tailwind. He has done this before. Muscle memory takes over, allowing his conscious mind to focus on navigation and weather assessment. The first week of return migration is easier than the southbound journey. The birds are heavier, stronger, better prepared. They know what to expect. There is less panic, less uncertainty, just steady progress north across the Southern Ocean. The weather cooperates initially. High-pressure systems dominate, bringing clear skies and moderate winds. The feeding is adequate, though not spectacular. Fish are less concentrated here than near Antarctica, but the terns have reserves to draw on. Missing a meal is inconvenient rather than dangerous. The alpha male loses weight gradually, half an ounce the first week. This is expected and sustainable. His departure weight included buffers specifically for this purpose. The juvenile is also losing weight slightly faster than the adults. His reserves were smaller to begin with. By day 8, he is noticeably leaner. Still flying strongly, still hunting successfully, but operating with smaller margins. One bad storm or extended period of poor fishing could shift his situation from manageable to critical. On day 10, they encountered their first major weather system, a deep low-pressure cell generating 50-knot winds and horizontal rain. The flock drops to lower altitude, seeking calmer air near the water surface. It helps, but not enough. Flying becomes work, hard work, burning calories faster than optimal. The storm lasts 30 hours. By the time it passes, the flock has lost perhaps 50 birds. Some fell from exhaustion. Others were blown so far off course that reuniting with the group became impossible. They may survive by joining other flocks or continuing independently, or they may not. The alpha male emerges from the storm tired but intact. He has weathered worse. His mate is still visible, flying 100 yards to his left. Both birds are functioning well despite the exertion. The juvenile, however, is struggling. He fell behind during the storm and is now a quarter-mile back, still flying, still moving north, but clearly laboring. His wing beats are less fluid, his glide shorter. He is approaching the edge of his reserves. Over the next 3 days, he falls further behind. The distance grows from a quarter mile to half a mile to nearly a mile. The main flock is barely visible ahead of him. He is not panicking. Panic burns energy uselessly. He simply continues flying north, maintaining direction, trusting that effort will be sufficient. On day 14, he catches a break. A massive school of fish surfaces ahead of him, driven to the top by hunting tuna below. The fish are frantic, disoriented, easy targets. He drops altitude and feeds for an hour without stopping. 30 fish consumed, his crop stretched to maximum capacity. It is the best feeding session since leaving Antarctica. The calories stabilize his deficit. He sleeps for 2 hours while gliding, wings locked, body resting even as forward motion continues. When he wakes, he feels stronger. Not recovered, but improved. Enough to continue with renewed confidence. He increases speed slightly and begins closing the distance to the main flock. By evening, he is back within visual contact, still at the rear, but connected again. The adults pay no attention to his return. Everyone is focused on their own survival. But being part of the flock provides psychological benefit. The juvenile flies with renewed purpose. He has faced crisis and overcome it. That experience will serve him well in future years. By day 20, the flock crosses 40 degrees south latitude. The furious 50s are behind them. The weather moderates noticeably. Winds decrease. Temperatures rise. Fishing improves. The worst of the return journey is complete. They are now in the roaring 40s, still challenging but manageable. The alpha male has lost a full ounce since leaving Antarctica. He now weighs 3.4 ounces, lean but functional, exactly where he should be at this point in migration. His mate is in similar condition. Both birds are executing the return journey with the efficiency of experienced travelers. No wasted energy, no unnecessary risks, steady progress maintained through discipline rather than heroics. The juvenile has stabilized at 3.3 ounces. He is thinner than ideal but surviving. Each day of successful fishing rebuilds him slightly. The cumulative effect will be sufficient if the weather remains cooperative. By early April, they reach the coast of South Africa. The transition from open ocean to coastal waters is psychologically significant. Land means landmarks, reference points, confirmation that navigation has been accurate. The flock follows the coastline north, feeding in the rich waters where the Benguela current brings cold water up from the depths. The fishing here is excellent. Sardines, anchovies, small mackerel, dense schools that make hunting almost effortless. The terns gain weight for the first time since leaving Antarctica. Not much, just a few grams each. But after 3 weeks of steady decline, any increase feels like victory. They rest more frequently now that land is nearby. Rocky outcrops and small islands provide perching opportunities. The birds can land, fold their wings, sleep deeply without the constant vigilance required when resting on open ocean. The alpha male lands on a rock at sunset. He has not slept on solid ground in 3 weeks. It feels strange after so long in flight. Too stable, too permanent, but also deeply restful. He sleeps for 6 hours without waking once. When dawn arrives, he is refreshed in ways that sleeping while gliding cannot provide. Deep rest, complete relaxation, cellular recovery accelerated. He launches at sunrise, rejoining the flock as it continues north. The African coast unreels below. Desert, then savanna, then tropical forest. The landscape changes daily as they move through climate zones. The terns pay little attention to the land itself. They are focused on the ocean, where food lives and weather forms. But the changing scenery marks progress in ways that open water cannot. By mid-April, they cross the equator for the second time this migration, heading north now instead of south. The juvenile notices the water changing. It is warmer here, a different color, teeming with different species. Everything is slightly unfamiliar because he has never seen it from this direction. Southbound, he was exhausted and overwhelmed. Northbound, he is experienced enough to actually observe. The flight past West Africa takes 10 days. The flock maintains steady pace, neither rushing nor delaying. They are on schedule to reach Iceland in early May. Perfect timing for the start of breeding season. Late April brings them past Morocco and into European waters. The ocean here is busy with human activity. Fishing boats, cargo ships, ferries crossing to islands. The terns navigate around these obstacles instinctively. Humans are not threats in open water, just mobile structures to be avoided. One afternoon, a research vessel is tracking the flock with radar. Scientists aboard are studying migration patterns, documenting routes and timing. They identify the flock as Arctic terns based on flight characteristics and heading. They estimate 1,500 birds, which matches the actual count closely. The scientists are impressed. These birds have traveled 6,000 miles in 6 weeks. They still have 5,000 miles remaining, and they are maintaining pace that suggests they will complete the journey successfully. One scientist remarks that Arctic terns are essentially flying machines that occasionally remember to rest. This is accurate. The terns pass the research vessel without acknowledgement. They are unaware of being studied, unimpressed by human interest. They are simply continuing north because north is where they must go. By early May, the flock reaches the waters off Scotland. They are close now. Iceland is less than a week away. The alpha male's internal navigation confirms what his eyes suggest. This coastline is familiar. These currents are known. He has passed this exact location 16 times. 8 southbound, 8 northbound. It is reliable as sunrise. The anticipation does not manifest as excitement. Terns do not experience excitement as humans understand it. But his metabolism shifts subtly. Hormones begin rising, preparing his body for breeding. Territorial instincts that have been dormant for 8 months start reactivating. He is transforming from migrant back to aggressive colonial nester. The change is gradual but inevitable. His mate is experiencing the same transformation. Both birds are preparing mentally and physically for the dramatic shift from independent feeding to cooperative breeding. The final push to Iceland takes 5 days. The weather is cooperating, the winds favorable. The flock maintains tight formation now, excited energy rippling through the group. Everyone knows they are close. On May 7th, the coast of Iceland appears on the horizon, black volcanic rock rising from gray ocean. The alpha male recognizes specific formations, that headland, that bay, that particular arrangement of cliffs. He is home. The flock does not land immediately. First, they circle the breeding island, calling loudly, announcing their return, claiming airspace, re-establishing presence. Some territories have been occupied by birds who arrived earlier. Others remain open, waiting for their traditional occupants. The alpha male descends toward his territory, the same small depression in the rocks where he has nested for 4 consecutive years. It is unoccupied. He lands, spreading his wings wide, calling aggressively, "This is mine, and I have returned." His mate circles once more, evaluating. She could choose a different mate, a different territory, but this male has proven reliable for 4 years. Successful breeding, strong territory defense, good provision during chick rearing. Why change what works? She lands beside him. He performs a brief courtship display. Ritualistic more than sincere, a formality confirming their partnership renewal. She accepts. They are pair bonded again, ready to begin another breeding season. The juvenile does not land at the colony. He circles with other young birds, observing but not participating. Non-breeders form loose associations around the colony edges, learning, watching, preparing for the year when they will claim territories themselves. He has completed his first full migration cycle, 22,000 miles flown. Antarctica reached, Iceland regained. He is now a proven survivor. Next year, he will repeat the journey with 1 year's additional experience. The year after that, he will likely attempt breeding. If successful, he will join the cycle that has sustained Arctic terns for millennia. Birth, growth, migration, breeding, migration, return. Repeated annually until age or circumstance breaks the pattern. The alpha male stands on his territory, surveying the colony. Around him, hundreds of other terns are landing, claiming spaces, renewing partnerships. The noise is building toward the familiar chaos of breeding season. Soon there will be eggs, then chicks, then 8 weeks of constant hunting and defense, followed by another migration south, the cycle continuing endlessly. Or at least, continuing as long as the planet provides the conditions necessary, as long as fish remain abundant in polar waters, as long as ice forms and retreats on schedule, as long as the winds blow and the currents flow. The alpha male does not worry about these things. He cannot control planetary systems or predict long-term changes. He can only respond to immediate conditions. Today, those conditions are favorable. The fish are running, the territory is secure, his mate has returned. Everything is as it should be. Tomorrow, the real work begins again. But tonight, after 11,000 miles of migration, he simply rests, on solid ground, in familiar territory, home. The first night back in Iceland is disorienting. After months of continuous daylight in Antarctica, the return to normal day-night cycles requires adjustment. The sun now sets for a few hours each night in early May. Not full darkness, just twilight that deepens slightly before dawn returns. The alpha male finds it strange. His internal rhythms are still synchronized to 24-hour light. He wakes several times during the short night, confused by the dimness, before remembering where he is. By morning, the adjustment begins, his body recognizing familiar patterns, recalibrating to northern hemisphere seasonal timing. Other birds are arriving throughout the day, some from his original flock, others from different departure groups. Arctic terns do not all leave Antarctica simultaneously. The exodus spans several weeks, creating a steady stream of returning birds through late April and early May. By May 10th, the colony is at 70% capacity, roughly 2,000 birds occupying territories, with more arriving daily. The alpha male defends his boundary with renewed vigor. The migration is complete. Breeding mode is fully activated. His testosterone levels are spiking, triggering the aggressive behavior necessary for successful territory maintenance. A neighboring male tests the boundary. The alpha male launches immediately, meeting him in midair. They clash briefly, more posturing than fighting, before the neighbor retreats. Point made, boundary reinforced. This will happen dozens of times daily for the next 8 weeks. It is exhausting but necessary. Weakness invites invasion. Invasion leads to territory loss. Territory loss means breeding failure. The alpha female spends the first 2 days back, reacquainting herself with the nest site, checking drainage patterns, evaluating exposure to wind, confirming it remains suitable. She could reject it and force the male to find a new location. This occasionally happens when winter storms have altered the terrain or previous occupants have left the area heavily soiled. But this site remains acceptable. Same rock depression, same modest shelter from prevailing winds, same proximity to the ocean. She begins scraping at loose gravel, creating a slight hollow. Not a nest in the traditional sense, just a minimal indentation to keep eggs from rolling away. Arctic terns invest almost nothing in nest construction. All energy goes into defense and provisioning. The male watches her work and performs periodic courtship flights, carrying small fish, circling the territory, calling. It is less about impressing her and more about public declaration of their partnership. This female is claimed, this territory is occupied, everyone else can redirect their attention elsewhere. Other birds respond appropriately. Males avoid the territory. Unpaired females evaluate other options. The system works because everyone understands and respects the signals. By May 15th, the first eggs begin appearing in the colony. Not from the alpha pair yet. They are still rebuilding from migration, ensuring their condition is optimal before committing to breeding. But earlier arriving birds, those who completed migration in late April, are already laying. The colony noise increases as eggs require constant supervision. One parent always on the nest, one parent always hunting. The rotation begins immediately and continues without pause for 6 weeks. The alpha female lays her first egg on May 20th, a single, mottled brown egg, slightly smaller than last year's. Her body has not fully recovered from migration. She is still below optimal breeding weight. The egg reflects this. Smaller eggs produce smaller chicks with lower survival rates. She knows this instinctively, if knowledge is the right word for information encoded genetically, rather than learned. But there is no option to delay. The breeding season window is fixed by Arctic summer timing. Lay now or skip the year entirely. She sits on the egg, pressing it against her brood patch. Incubation has begun. The male takes the first hunting shift, flying to the ocean, catching fish, returning every 30 minutes. Not for the egg yet, the egg does not eat, but his mate needs food to sustain incubation effort. She cannot leave to hunt without exposing the egg to cold, predators, or opportunistic thieves. So he provisions her, delivering fish regularly, maintaining her body condition. It is the same routine as last year and the year before, repeated because it works. 3 days later, she lays the second egg. This is standard. 2 egg clutches are the norm for Arctic terns. Occasionally 1 egg, rarely 3. 2 represents the balance between reproductive investment and parental capacity. More eggs would require more food delivery than the parents can reliably provide. Fewer eggs reduce reproductive output below optimal levels. 2 is the strategy refined by evolution. Both eggs are now in the scrape. Both parents alternate incubation shifts. The male takes mornings, the female afternoons and evenings. Nighttime shifts are divided based on fatigue levels rather than strict scheduling. It is cooperative parenting built on mutual trust. Each bird depends on the other to fulfill their role. Failure by either parent dooms the breeding attempt. The colony is now fully active. 3,000 birds, most with eggs, all defending territories and hunting constantly. The noise is continuous and overwhelming. Visitors to the island describe it as walking into a storm made of sound. Every bird calling simultaneously, creating a wall of noise that makes conversation impossible. The terns do not notice. This is normal. This is breeding season. 1 week into incubation, a severe weather system moves across Iceland. Winds gusting to 70 knots, rain falling horizontally. The alpha female is on incubation duty when it hits. She crouches low over the eggs, wings spread slightly to shield them from the worst of the wind-driven rain. Her feathers are designed to shed water, but the volume overwhelms their capacity. She becomes soaked within minutes. The eggs are protected beneath her, but she is miserable. Cold, wet, unable to leave without exposing the eggs. She endures for 3 hours before the male returns. He was hunting when the storm hit and took shelter on the lee side of a cliff, waiting for conditions to improve before attempting the return flight. When he finally makes it back to the territory, he is also soaked and exhausted, but he takes over incubation immediately. She launches into the storm, needing to hunt despite the terrible conditions. Her energy reserves are depleted from hours of shivering while protecting the eggs. She must eat or risk losing body condition below sustainable levels. The fishing is difficult. The ocean surface is chaotic, visibility poor, but she manages to catch 6 fish over 2 hours. Not enough to fully replenish, but sufficient to continue. She returns to the territory and they switch again. He hunts while she incubates. The storm passes by evening. Both birds have survived, both eggs remain intact. Success measured in simple terms, nothing lost. Breeding attempt still viable. By early June, the eggs begin hatching. First one, then 2 days later, the second. The chicks are tiny, helpless, demanding. They eat constantly, growing at rates that seem designed to bankrupt their parents. The alpha male and female enter the most intense period of breeding, both hunting simultaneously now, bringing fish to chicks every 20 minutes. Dawn to dusk, no rest, no breaks. The chicks grow rapidly. Downy gray fluff is replaced by juvenile feathers. Tiny bodies expand, wings develop, legs strengthen. By late June, they are nearly full-sized, still dependent on parental feeding but capable of short flights. The juvenile from last year, now in his second summer, watches from the colony edges. He sees the exhaustion in the adults, the constant hunting, the aggressive defense. He is not ready for this, not physically, not psychologically. His time will come. But today, he is content to observe and learn. The alpha pair continues their brutal schedule, feeding chicks, defending territory, surviving on minimal sleep. Both birds have lost significant weight since breeding began. The male is down to 3 ounces, the female 3.2. They are skeletal, every unnecessary gram metabolized away, but the chicks are thriving. Both healthy, both flying short distances, both will soon be ready for migration. By mid-July, the chicks are fully fledged. They can hunt independently, though not efficiently. They still beg for food from parents who are nearing exhaustion, but the intensity is declining. The breeding season is ending. Soon it will be time to migrate south again. The alpha male stands on his territory one evening, watching the chicks practice flying. They are strong, capable, likely to survive migration. His job is nearly complete for this year. Raise them to flight competency, then prepare for the next journey south. The cycle continues. It never stops. It cannot stop. Stopping means the end of the species. So they fly, breed, fly, rest, fly, breed, year after year after year, until individual birds fall but the population continues. This is the Arctic tern's reality, beautiful in its commitment, exhausting in its demands, sustainable only through perfect execution of a strategy developed over millions of years. The alpha male does not think about sustainability or evolution. He thinks about fish locations and wind patterns and whether his mate is showing signs of exhaustion. Immediate concerns, immediate responses, but collectively across thousands of individuals over thousands of generations, these immediate concerns create something remarkable. A species that connects both poles, that experiences more daylight than should be possible, that flies distances that seem designed to be impossible. The Arctic tern is not trying to be remarkable. It is simply trying to survive. But survival, when executed with this level of commitment and efficiency, becomes remarkable by default. The sun dips toward the horizon, not quite setting in the long Arctic twilight. The colony settles into evening routines. Feeding rates decrease. Territorial disputes quiet. Birds rest where they stand, conserving energy for tomorrow's efforts. The alpha male closes his eyes. He is tired in ways that go beyond physical exhaustion. 8 weeks of constant effort, rebuilding from migration, defending territory, raising chicks. It is the cost of breeding successfully, and he has paid it willingly because there is no other choice. Tomorrow, the work continues, and the day after, and every day until migration calls again. This is the life he was built for, the only life possible for an Arctic tern. And despite everything, it works. The chicks are alive. The species continues. The cycle remains unbroken. By early August, the colony is transforming. The intensity that defined breeding season is fading. Chicks are now independent flyers, hunting their own fish with increasing success. Parental feeding has stopped almost entirely. The adults have fulfilled their obligation. Raise offspring to flight competency, teach basic hunting skills, then release them to their own survival. What happens next is up to the young birds themselves. The alpha male is lighter than he has been all year, 2.9 ounces, dangerously thin by normal standards. But normal does not apply during breeding season. Every Arctic tern adult emerges from chick rearing in similar condition. Skeletal, exhausted, running on fumes and determination. Now comes the recovery period. 4 weeks to rebuild body mass before the next migration south. 4 weeks to transform from breeding wreck back into migration-capable athlete. It seems impossible, but the terns have been doing it successfully for millions of years. The alpha male increases his feeding rate. No longer provisioning chicks, all caught fish go directly to rebuilding his own reserves. He hunts 4 times daily, catching 15 to 20 fish per session. His body absorbs the calories desperately, converting protein and fat into muscle and energy stores. The weight gain is noticeable within days. By mid-August, he is back to 3.2 ounces, still below optimal but functional. By late August, 3.5 ounces, almost ready. His mate follows the same pattern, her body prioritizing recovery with single-minded efficiency. Both birds are preparing for the next impossible journey. The territorial aggression has disappeared completely. Birds that would have fought viciously in June now ignore each other in August. Territories that mattered desperately are abandoned without ceremony. The rocks that defined breeding success now hold no meaning. The psychological shift is absolute, from colonial nester back to independent migrant. The transformation happens gradually, then suddenly. One day the colony is still functional, the next it is dissolving. Birds begin leaving in small groups, not the mass departure of spring, more like a slow exodus spanning 2 weeks. Individuals and pairs departing when their internal calendars declare readiness. The alpha male leaves on August 28th. His mate departed 2 days earlier. They will not see each other again until next May. Their partnership exists only during breeding season. The rest of the year, they are strangers who happen to fly the same route. He launches from the rocks without looking back. No attachment to place, no nostalgia for territory, just forward momentum toward Antarctica. Because Antarctica is where food will be abundant in 4 months, when the southern summer arrives. Several dozen other birds leave the same morning. They form a loose group, not coordinated but traveling together through coincidence of timing. The juvenile from this year's breeding attempts follows. His 2 chicks, now fully independent, join the flow of departing birds. They are first-year migrants, inexperienced, untested, facing the same challenges their father faced last year. Roughly 60% will not survive to return, but some will. And those survivors will become the breeding adults of future generations. The southbound journey in late summer is different from the spring's departure. The weather is milder, the days still long though shortening. Fishing is better because northern waters are at peak productivity. The birds are not rushing. They have 3 months to reach Antarctica. Plenty of time for a measured pace with regular feeding stops. The alpha male flies steadily south, averaging 200 miles daily. He stops frequently along the European coast, resting on rocks, feeding in productive areas. His weight stabilizes at 3.7 ounces. Good condition for migration, with reserves to handle occasional setbacks. By mid-September, he reaches the African coast. The fishing here is excellent, as it always is during the southern migration. He spends 3 days resting and feeding intensively, building extra reserves because the Southern Ocean crossing is still ahead. And the Southern Ocean never becomes easier, no matter how many times you cross it. Other birds are doing the same. The loose group that left Iceland has grown, absorbing terns from Norwegian and Greenland colonies. Perhaps 3,000 birds now moving south together. Not a tight flock, just a general southward flow spanning hundreds of miles. Individual birds separated by miles, but connected by shared destination. By early October, they reach the Southern Ocean. The alpha male has crossed this water 16 times, 8 southbound, 8 northbound. He knows what to expect. 50-knot winds, massive waves, limited fishing, 3 weeks of exhausting effort. But knowledge does not make it easier. It just makes it familiar. The crossing takes 23 days this time, slightly longer than the spring journey because he is traveling more conservatively, stopping more frequently, prioritizing sustainable pace over speed. He arrives in Antarctic waters in late October. The ice is retreating rapidly as southern spring advances toward summer. Open water is expanding daily, fish concentrations building. He finds a lead and begins feeding immediately. The first Antarctic krill taste exactly as remembered. Rich, fatty, exactly what his body needs after 3 weeks of marginal rations. He feeds for 6 hours straight, then sleeps on an ice floe for 12 hours, deep, restorative sleep that only happens after major efforts are complete. When he wakes, he is in Antarctic summer. The sun is circling without setting. The water is productive. He has 4 months of recovery and feeding ahead. The same routine as last year. Hunt, rest, rebuild. Prepare for the next return journey north. The cycle continues. His 2 chicks from this breeding season arrive in Antarctica 3 days apart. Both made it. Both survived their first migration. This is unusual. Typically, only 1 chick from a 2-egg clutch survives to return. But these 2 were strong, well-fed, adequately prepared. They beat the odds. The alpha male does not recognize them, does not know they are his offspring. They are simply 2 more first-year birds joining the Antarctic feeding grounds. The family connection exists biologically, but not socially. Arctic terns do not maintain family bonds outside breeding season. Each bird is independent, responsible for their own survival. The chicks find their own feeding territories and begin the work of surviving their first Antarctic summer. They will spend 2 years here and in migration before returning to Iceland to breed, learning, growing, developing the skills and experience necessary for successful reproduction. Most will not make it, but some will, and that is sufficient to maintain the population. The alpha male settles into his Antarctic routine with practiced ease. Same polynya as last year, same daily pattern of hunting and resting. His body recovers quickly from breeding season exhaustion. By December, he weighs 4.3 ounces, the heaviest he has been in 2 years. His feathers are perfect, recently molted, pristine white and black. He is in peak condition, ready for another year of the cycle. Antarctica to Iceland to Antarctica. Breed, migrate, recover, migrate, breed. Repeated annually as long as his body allows. He is now 9 years old. Middle-aged for an Arctic tern. He has flown roughly 400,000 miles in his lifetime. Raised 16 chicks, of which perhaps 8 survived to breeding age. Those 8 are now contributing to the next generation. His genetic legacy spreading through the population. This is success by evolutionary standards, not comfort or ease or rest, just successful reproduction and survival long enough to repeat the process multiple times. The Antarctic summer passes like all the others before it, feeding, resting, slowly building reserves. The sun circles endlessly overhead. The ice advances and retreats with tidal and weather patterns. Leopard seals patrol the leads, claiming occasional victims, But most birds survive through vigilance and experience. By March, the light begins shifting again, the signal that initiates the next migration north. The alpha male responds automatically, increasing feeding intensity, shortening rest periods, preparing mentally for departure. On March 14th, he leaves Antarctica, one day earlier than last year, his internal calendar adjusting slightly based on ice conditions and body readiness. The northbound crossing of the Southern Ocean takes 21 days, slightly faster than the southbound journey because he is in better condition. He arrives at the African coast in early April, feeds intensively for a week, continues north along the familiar route, Europe, Scotland, the waters off Iceland. By May 5th, he sees the breeding colony, home again. His territory is unoccupied. He lands, claims it, calls aggressively. 3 days later, his mate arrives, the same female as previous years. She evaluates the territory, evaluates him, accepts both. They are pair bonded for another season. The cycle begins again. Eggs, chicks, 8 weeks of exhausting effort. Then recovery, migration, Antarctic summer, return migration. Over and over and over. This is year 9. He has perhaps 6 to 11 more years remaining. The average Arctic tern lives 15 to 20 years. A few reach 30. Those exceptional individuals fly over 1 million miles in their lifetimes. The alpha male may become one of them, or he may not. It depends on factors beyond his control. Weather, food availability, predator encounters, simple luck. But today, standing on his territory in early May, he is alive and functional, ready for another breeding season, another migration, another year of the impossible routine that defines his species. The sun circles overhead without setting. The colony noise builds as more birds arrive. Territorial disputes erupt and resolve. Courtship displays fill the air. Everything is familiar. Everything is as it should be. The alpha male does not consider the larger picture, does not think about lifetime mileage or evolutionary success or species survival. He thinks about the fish he needs to catch today, the territory he needs to defend right now, the mate beside him who needs provisioning during egg laying, immediate concerns, immediate actions. But across the colony, across all Arctic tern colonies worldwide, these immediate actions create something remarkable. A species that refuses to accept limitations, that sees the entire planet as habitat, that experiences summer as a resource to be chased rather than a season to be endured. Arctic terns are not special because they are trying to be special. They are special because their survival strategy requires them to accomplish things that seem impossible. And then they accomplish those things. Year after year after year. For millions of years, the alpha male launches from his territory to hunt, his 9th fishing trip to provision his mate during egg formation. He flies toward the ocean with steady wing beats, the same motion he has repeated millions of times. Flying is not something he thinks about. It is simply what he does, what he has always done, what he will continue doing until he cannot. The ocean stretches gray and cold beneath him. Fish move below the surface. Silver flashes in dark water. He hovers, scans, dives, catches a sand eel, surfaces, swallows, hovers again, catches another. The routine is automatic, efficient, perfected over 9 years of practice. He catches 8 fish in 20 minutes, enough for 1 delivery to his mate. He will repeat this process 5 more times today. Tomorrow, he will do it again, and every day after for 8 weeks. It is exhausting just to consider. But for the Arctic tern, it is simply life, the only life they know, and somehow, impossibly, it works. He turns back toward the colony, fish in his crop, wings beating steadily. Below him, the ocean continues its eternal rhythms. Above him, the sky stretches endless and blue. Ahead of him, another breeding season waits. Beyond that, another migration, and another, and another. The cycle continues because it must, because stopping means extinction. And Arctic terns do not stop. They fly, they breed, they survive. They connect the poles and chase the sun and accomplish the impossible daily. Not through magic or supernatural ability, just through commitment to a strategy that works. Hard work, perfect timing, evolutionary refinement over millions of years. The alpha male approaches the colony, descends toward his territory, lands beside his mate who waits with the patience of a bird who knows her partner will return. Because he always returns. For 9 years, he has returned. And if fortune allows, he will return for many more. He regurgitates the fish for his mate. She accepts them, consuming quickly. Fuel for the eggs developing inside her. He stands beside her, preening briefly, then launches again. Back to the ocean, back to hunting, back to the work that never ends. This is the Arctic tern. This is their story. A story without ending because the cycle has no conclusion. Just continuation. Season after season, year after year, generation after generation. Flying between worlds, chasing summer, refusing to quit. Living a life so demanding it should be impossible. And yet they thrive. Not despite the difficulty, but because they are built for exactly this challenge, perfectly adapted through millions of years of evolution, the ultimate migrants, the sun chasers, the birds that see more of the planet than any creature alive, and they do it all with 4 ounces of feathers, muscle, and determination. The alpha male disappears toward the horizon, a white speck against gray ocean, flying toward his next meal, his next task, his next moment in a life measured by migrations. Behind him, the colony continues its beautiful chaos. Thousands of birds, all pursuing the same impossible strategy, all succeeding through effort that defies easy explanation. This is the Arctic tern, built for endurance, designed for distance, living proof that the impossible is just the difficult done repeatedly. The ocean waits, the sky beckons, and the journey continues, always. Understanding the Arctic tern requires understanding what evolution has chosen for them. Most birds migrate, many travel impressive distances, but the Arctic tern has taken migration and transformed it into an existence built on flying. They rejected the compromise that other species accept. The compromise that says you cannot have everything. You must choose your season, your hemisphere, your summer. Arctic terns said no. We will have both summers. We will see both poles. We will fly until flying becomes our entire existence. And somehow it works. The alpha male returns from his fishing trip with 8 more fish. His mate accepts them, her body converting protein into eggs with remarkable efficiency. She will lay the first egg in 3 days. Then, the cycle within the cycle begins again. Incubation, hatching, chick rearing, fledging. 8 weeks compressed into desperate effort. Then, recovery, migration, Antarctic summer, return. 12 months to complete 1 full rotation. And within those 12 months, they see summer twice. Experience continuous daylight for 8 months total. Fly 44,000 miles. Hunt hundreds of thousands of fish. Defend territory against thousands of intrusions. raise 2 chicks from eggs to flight-capable juveniles. It is an absurd amount of activity for a bird weighing less than a bar of soap. But absurd is relative. To the Arctic tern, this is simply normal. The baseline existence that their species has maintained successfully for longer than humans have existed. The colony around the alpha male is proof of this mastery. 3,000 birds, all executing the same strategy, all succeeding at rates high enough to maintain population stability. Some individuals fail, certainly, but the population persists because enough individuals succeed. The alpha male does not think about evolution or population dynamics. His concerns are measured in minutes and fish. Will the next dive be successful? Is that approaching bird a territorial threat? Does his mate have enough food to sustain egg development? These immediate questions occupy his full attention. By answering these questions successfully, day after day, year after year, he contributes to something larger. The continuation of a strategy that spans millions of years, each bird living moment to moment, the species enduring through the accumulation of those moments. The afternoon passes in routine activity. The alpha male makes 3 more fishing trips. His mate consumes the delivered fish without comment. There is only need and provision, hunger and feeding. Simple exchanges that sustain partnership. By evening, both birds are tired. The male has flown roughly 40 miles today hunting. The female has sat motionless, protecting territory and preparing eggs. Both activities are exhausting in different ways. They rest side by side as the sun dips toward the horizon, but does not set. Arctic summer twilight. Bright enough to read by, dark enough to feel like evening. The colony quiets slightly as birds settle for rest periods. Not silent, never silent with 3,000 terns present, but quieter, the volume dropping from deafening to merely very loud. The alpha male tucks his head beneath his wing. One eye remains partially open, monitoring the boundary even during sleep. Territory defense is not a job with off hours. This is how they sleep during breeding season. Never deeply, never completely, always alert. It is exhausting over weeks, but sustainable because they know it is temporary. 8 weeks of intensity, then release. As darkness deepens to its minimal extent, the colony settles into the closest thing to peace it experiences. Birds sleeping in place, territories unchallenged, brief respite before tomorrow's efforts begin. It is not peaceful by human standards, but for the terns, it is home, the place where they breed, the territory they defend, the rocks that represent success or failure. And in that context, it is perfect, not because it is comfortable, but because it is functional. It provides what they need when they need it. Fish nearby, nesting substrate, sufficient space to raise chicks. Everything else is irrelevant. The alpha male sleeps lightly, his 9th breeding season underway. He does not dread the coming effort or wish for easier alternatives. He simply exists in the present, attending to immediate needs, because the pattern has always continued. Through his lifetime, through thousands of generations before. The pattern works because it has been tested by time and refined by survival. This is simply what Arctic terns do. Breed in the Arctic, migrate to Antarctic, return to Arctic. Repeat until death. Create the next generation who will repeat the same cycle. The sun begins climbing again, never having fully set. Morning arrives without darkness preceding it. The colony wakes gradually, birds rising from rest, beginning the day's activities. The alpha male launches immediately toward the ocean. First fishing trip of the day, the easiest, because fish are concentrated near the surface during dawn. He catches 10 fish in 15 minutes, returns to the territory, delivers them to his mate. She consumes them quickly, her body demanding continuous fuel. He launches again without pause. Back to the ocean, back to hunting. The routine established, the pattern engaged, another day in the endless cycle. This is his life. This is every Arctic tern's life. Flying and fishing and breeding and migrating. Simple activities elevated to art through perfect repetition. The Arctic tern has achieved something rare in nature. They have found a strategy that allows them to experience the best of both polar environments. They have maximized daylight exposure, optimized feeding opportunities, minimized time spent in darkness or winter. It costs them everything. Constant effort, no rest, exhaustion as baseline existence. But the rewards justify the cost. High survival rates, successful reproduction, population stability. They have found the solution that works, and now they execute that solution with precision refined over millions of years. The alpha male disappears toward the horizon, a white speck against morning sky. Behind him, the colony continues its organized chaos. Thousands of stories playing out simultaneously, each bird pursuing individual survival, the collective result being species continuation. It is beautiful in its efficiency, brutal in its demands, successful in its outcomes. The Arctic tern chasing summer across the world, flying impossible distances because the impossible is where the food lives. Breeding in terrible locations because those locations are available when needed. Accepting exhaustion as the price of experiencing more daylight than any creature alive. And through all of it, succeeding. Not perfectly, not without losses, but succeeding enough. Enough to maintain populations, enough to persist through time, enough to remain one of the most successful bird species on the planet. Because success is not measured by comfort. Success is measured by continuation. And the Arctic tern continues. Year after year, generation after generation, migration after migration. The cycle turning without pause, the pattern repeating without deviation. A living demonstration of what evolution can create when survival demands extremes. The sun climbs higher in the sky that never grows dark. The ocean rolls beneath winds that never cease. And somewhere between those constants, a 4-ounce bird hunts fish to feed a mate who will soon lay eggs that will become chicks that will migrate to Antarctica and perhaps, if fortune allows, return to continue the pattern. This is the Arctic tern. This is their story. Told not through words, but through wings. Written not in books, but in flight paths that span the globe. A story without ending because the cycle has no conclusion. Just continuation, achievement, and the quiet persistence of a species that refuse to accept limitations. The alpha male catches another fish, turns back toward the colony, flies home, and the cycle continues, as it always has, as it always will, one migration at a time, one fish at a time, one impossible journey transformed into routine through perfect execution. This is how legends are made, not through single heroic acts, but through ordinary actions repeated extraordinarily well. The Arctic tern is not trying to be legendary. It is simply trying to survive. But survival, when pursued with this level of commitment, becomes legendary by default. And so they fly, forever chasing summer, forever connecting the poles, forever proving that the impossible is just the difficult done right.